the Pat Mayo Experience. Yes, once again, you're hearing me audio only. In fact, I recorded a full video show for the Pat Mayo Experience with Jeff Bergerson from FantasyGolfInsider.com, and it is now lost to time. Technical difficulties, and the same thing happened to my Week 2 rankings debate show for fantasy football. Hopefully we can get that back up to you. So if you're looking for the audio and video version, the video version, I promise, is going to return to the DraftKings YouTube page on Wednesday with a full breakdown for the Week 2 DraftKings slate. So please go subscribe over there and go check that out. But you're going to have to bear with me. This is not going to be a full show, but I wanted to make sure that people got my full thoughts on the BMW Championship. Hell, I did all this research. I might as well try to tell people, although most people would probably agree that if I didn't give out picks or anything like that, they would just be doing better off. But hey, people need picks to fade, so you can hear where I'm going, do the opposite, and you'll be all good to go. My cheat sheet is already released. That is up at dkplaybook.com. You can find that right now. So let's talk a little bit about the golf. The BMW Championship, the third leg of the FedEx Cup playoffs. We're down to 70 players. This is a no-cut event. So strategy right off the top. You have to understand that players are going to get all 4 rounds unless they withdraw, which is, always on the table. So you need to factor this in more like you do one of these early season events, WGC events, where there's no cut. The best way to go about this, to have a different lineup in large field GPPs, just leave a little bit of money on the table. Now, normally, in some of the WGCs where it's more wide open, you can leave $1,000 on the table, no big deal. This week for the BMW Championship, I would recommend against that, leaving $200, $300, $400 on the table max, because as we've seen, the guys that win these FedEx Cup events, they're the best players, and they also happen to be the most expensive ones this week. So in terms of top 10 in pricing, it goes DJ Spieth, DJ Spieth, oh no, now I have it all backwards. I have it listed by my rankings for the week, which you can go find. I mean, you can't find my rankings. I have them inside the column. I ran my custom stat model at fantasynational.com, and it spit out the guys that I like. However, if you have different key stats that you like for the event this week, you can go to fantasynational.com. The founding member membership is still available. The beta test is still free, so you can try it out for the next 2 weeks. But that's coming to an end very soon. If you get in now, you get $80 off for the year. It's $120 per week. That is less than one entry in a $4 GPP per week over the course of the year. And trust me, there is no better database on the internet that you can find if you like stats. We also have a lineup generator. There is a custom stat model. There's ownership projections, which you can track in real time. It's all very convenient. If you're serious about playing daily fantasy golf on DraftKings, then this is the way that you want to go about it. No rolling stats anywhere, and date ranges you're going to find anywhere else, not even on PGAtour.com. So fantasynational.com, you can find that all out right now. So I guess I should tell you about the course just a little bit. Conway Farms is the course of the BMW Championship. This is a rotating course for the tournament. So the last time it was played at Conway was 2015. Jason Day won at 22 under. Before that was 2013. Zach Johnson won that season. So if you're looking back at course history, remember that those are the 2 years. Don't look back at last year or 2014. Just keep that in the back of your mind, because I know people make that mistake all the time. It's 7,200 yards, give or take a few, depending on the tee setup that day. It's a par 71, and the key stats that I'm looking at this week in order. Now, I'm going to go more in depth on that when I do my custom model. I usually have around 7 or 8 stats, but the big 4 for me: strokes gained approach, par 4, birdies are better, especially in a no-cut event. We want birdie makers out there, and there's a lot of easier par 4s, which you can score on. Strokes gained off the tee, it's more of a mix between, so a lot of the time, if you hit the ball really long and really straight, you're going to rank highly in that stat. I would put more of a lean towards accuracy this week over distance, because if you get off the beaten path, you're not going to be able to make birdies on any of these holes. In fact, you might end up making bogeys, but you don't need to be a really long hitter to dominate at this course. Like we've seen, if Zach Johnson can win an event, it's not a Bombers course. Furyk came second that year too. Ryan Moore is a top 5 finish at this event. So Bombers is more out of the category, which we've seen over the course of the first 2 FedEx Cup legs. So that's something to keep in the back of your mind. Some of these guys that you just wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole because they don't hit the ball far enough the first 2 weeks are guys that you can start giving more of a look to this time around. And proximity from 125 yards and in the 2 key proximity ranges, which I found because of the length of the holes, 125 and in listen, if you start hitting wedges close, you're going to make a ton of birdies, and there's ample opportunity at a lot of these holes to do that. And then there's some longer par 4s and longer par 5s. The long irons are going to factor in a little bit more as well. But I really like this wedge play when it comes to the fact of you want to make birdies on these short holes. And the guys with the wedge, the accurate wedges who have a decent putting week are the ones who are going to do that. Now, let's go to the top. Spieth, DJ, Fowler, Rahm, Justin Thomas are your plus $10,000 crowd. Then it goes Hideki, Day, Rory, Paul Casey, Brooks, Koepka. That's your $9,000 to $10,000. I'm sick of fading Jordan Spieth. I know a lot of people are going Dustin. I know Spieth is going to be higher owned, but I think where distance plays less of a factor this week, he's playing so well recently. He comes out number 2 in my model for reference over the past 8 rounds. So the FedEx Cup playoff, Dustin Johnson's actually number 1, then Spieth, then Justin Thomas, then Stenson, then Paul Casey comes out at number 5. So those are my power rankings for the last 8 rounds. A full list by round, 8 rounds, 12 rounds, 24 rounds, and 50 rounds, and this course only from the previous 2 times it was held there, can be found in a link through the DK Playbook cheat sheet if you do want to go check those out. But like I said, those are just my custom ranks. You can set up your own custom model and weight what you want properly at fantasynational.com, so you can go check that out. So Spieth and Rickie. Spieth is my tier 1 guy above 10,000. Then I'm going to Rickie Fowler as my next guy. But the big thing is, if you're with a no-cut event, it's really easy to go stars and scrubs, and you're basically going to have to do that this week if you take some of the top guys. Like if you take Spieth, and then, hell, if you take Justin Thomas, you're basically going to have to deal with the lower end of the $7,000 area. And I think that a lot of people are going to do that, even if they go Fowler Thomas or Dustin Hideki. Or, I mean, the most popular combo of the week is going to be Jordan Spieth and Jason Day. That's just how a lot of people are going to start their teams. And it doesn't leave you much wiggle room on the backside to really build a balanced roster. So the guys in the $8,000 area and the $7,500 to $8,000 area, I feel, are going to go massively under-owned this week. So if you wanted to take a contrarian move this week, would actually be something to the effect of a balanced lineup, where even if you started your team with Hideki or started your team with Paul Casey or just Jason Day, that's a good way to differentiate one, because everyone's going to go with one of the top guys and then pair them with Day or Casey, because they're going to be the popular plays, both good plays. I'm more on Casey than Day, but that's me. If you just start your team Day Casey, then it's not going to be that big of a deal, even if one of the guys is 35% owned, because it's the combinations that you're looking for. So if it's Spieth, if Spieth's at 25 and Day is at 35, you have to think that like 12 to 15% of those teams are going to start Spieth and Day. If you just start with Day, you really throw out a lot of different combinations and allow yourself to have a unique lineup. And then you leave $200 on the table, and boom, you're dancing when it comes to it. So if we just theoretically say that the most popular combination of the week is going to be Jordan Spieth and Jason Day to start, let's plug them in. Jordan Spieth, Jason Day, 11.8, 9,600. Your remaining average per player after that is $7,150. So that's an ultimate stars and scrubs roster. And as Bergerson had pointed out to me last year at the BMW Championship, there was a lot of players down at like 6,100 and 6,200 that you could, just take a scrub guy and then hit that middle tier. You can't do that this time around. The lowest priced players on the board are $6,900. Now, there's a lot of players at 69, 7,000, 71, and 72. It's doable to make a lineup this way. It's just, it really narrows the pool of players you can really go to if you want to go superstar, high-end star. You're not going to be able to hit that mid-tier level. So a balanced approach, I think in larger scale, smaller tournaments is a really good way to go. But of course, in the large scale GPPs, if you do want to win, you're going to have the winner on your team. In the higher price, smaller events or in single entry, you don't necessarily need to have the winner in this style of event. We've seen that before with the way that it plays out. So just keep that in mind when you're constructing your rosters. I actually do really like the balanced approach this week. So for me, I'm actually going to fade Jason Day because he's going to be too popular, and I'm going to go on Stenson and Casey from that range, who are both going to be popular in their own right, but I think they're going to be less popular. And another guy who is just above Jason Day that I really do like is Hideki Matsuyama, and I like him, one, because he's an excellent player, scores really well on par 4s, and he's coming off the miscut, and people used him. That's always a recipe for a lower ownership. So I think of the top end guys, the top 10 players, the ones you're going to find with lower ownership are going to be Hideki, Brooks Koepka, and John Rahm. I think the other guys are all going to be around 15% or more, with some guys verging on 30% in terms of ownership. The only other one who's going to be below that is Rory, and I'm just not using Rory. I've been on this train for a while. If he comes back to bite me, so be it. He's Rory. He's an excellent player. He can definitely win. But he's been dealing with an injury. It's been showing. He cannot hold up for 4 rounds. He can have flashes, glimpses over 6-hole, 9-hole stretches, but it's just not going to keep itself going. In terms of ownership, right now it looks like he's going to be really lowly owned. But as we've seen every single week when it comes to Rory, that, you know, he gets the buzz. Oh, he's going to be a low-owned contrarian play. I'm going to use Rory. And then by the time it comes around, he's going to be 15% owned. So full fade for me on Rory, full fade for me on Jason Day. Those are 2 guys that I'm staying away from. It scares me to death, but I'm not playing 150 lineups. I'm only going to be playing 20, so I really need to narrow down my core. And I do think that Hideki in that level does provide a little bit of a pivot play with just as high an upside. So the elite values, Jordan Spieth, Rickie Fowler for me, then Hideki Matsuyama, and Paul Casey. The second level values I'm going with Stenson I really like. In fact, I'm actually going to throw out a 25-1 bet on Henrik Stenson to win this week. And then Justin Rose at $8,500 is another player that I'm going to have a lot of exposure to. Now, I've really concentrated my core at the top. I'm only going to play so many combinations of that. It's the $7,000 level where you really do need to mix and match. So in my cheat sheet, I've thrown out a lot of names. You don't need to use them all. Maybe some guys are more appealing to you. Some guys are high ownership. Some guys are low ownership. But I think this is where you really want to mix and match. Not necessarily go all in on any of one of these guys. Have exposure, spread that around. Don't go any more than 25% to give you max upside in case one of these guys can walk away with a win, which we don't expect because in these playoff events, the elite guys go. So my low-end values, Leishman's going to be very, very popular at 7,700. I don't care. He sets up perfectly for this course, but I really do like Kevin Na. Kevin Na is overpriced at $7,900, and that's perfect. When they played here in 2015, he ended up with a T10. In his last 3 events, he has a 6th, a 29th, and a 4th. You know, listen, Kevin Na never wins, but at $7,900, he can be an excellent DraftKings play this week. I really like Kevin Na a lot, and even when I ran my model, he came out 9th over the past 8 rounds, and at Leishman was number 6 in that model for anyone who wants to know as well. Again, you can go check that out. There's a link up in the column if that's where you want to check out. I really do like Kevin Na, though. Jason Duffner is someone I'm going to have lower exposure to, but he's a GPP play. I think where you're not at a bomber's course and strokes gained approach is really important. Ball striking can be really important. Jason Duffner is a player that you always need to look at. Hopefully, his putting just comes around this week and it's all good with him. We'll find out. I'm going back to my main man, Kim. $7,500. He probably has the largest withdrawal potential, which would cripple you in any sort of event, but I do like him in these sorts of style of events. And when I looked at the proximity from 125 yards and in and 175 to 200 yards, he ranked out really highly in both those numbers of players from down in this level. If he can get his putter rolling again, that short game comes back, I can see Siwoo Kim competing. Hey, listen, you're not banking on him to win, although I did bet him at 250-1 because I'm now on the train of betting Siwoo Kim every single week. He has 2 wins in his last 34 starts now. So if you just bet him every week, you get him at 250-1 every week. He only needs one. I mean, if he's winning once in every 17 events anyway, you're just getting max value on him. He's turned into the new Martin Keimer in that way. From the low end, Woodland, Swafford, and Harmon are guys I'm looking at. Much like Siwoo Kim, Brian Harmon is a player that ranked out really well from both of those proximity ranges, so I'm going to take a shot with him. It never works out well for me whenever I use Brian Harmon, and whenever I don't use him, he goes off. So just know I'm on him this week. Hopefully he can come through for me, but I do like the way he's competed in a lot of strong fields this year, and if it does set up well for him with the things that he does actually excel in, then it could be a really nice spot for Brian Harmon this week. Other players to consider, Brennan Steele, Pat Perez is someone I'm going to have exposure to. Emiliano Grillo, Stuart Sink rated really highly for me. And then Grayson Murray, he scores on the par 5s, longer par 5s. So does Luke List. And with the no-cut event, you just want their birdie-making potential in there. I know that's a lot of players, but like I said, very concentrated at the top, very spread out in this area. Again, it all depends on the number of players that you want to have as a part of your core and the number of lineups that you play this week on DraftKings for the BMW Championship. In terms of projected ownership this week, since I'm doing the show a bit later in the week, I actually have a bit more insight to that. That's something else that FantasyNational.com can show you. So in terms of right now, calculated ownership, the top guys are going to be Spieth, Day, Casey, Rickie Fowler, Henrik Stenson, Patrick Reed, Dustin Johnson, Justin Thomas. That is where we're looking for right now in terms of calculated ownership. So if you're looking for pivot plays down the board just based off ownership, like I mentioned, of the top guys, Rory, Rahm, Brooks Koepka, and Hideki Matsuyama seem to be the four that will have the lowest ownership of the top 10 players. Then Sergio and Ian Poulter from that $8,000 range are the other ones that are going to have low ownership in terms of that. I talked about Jason Duffner. We have him at 8%. Grillo is 4%. Steele is only 3%. It's Daniel Berger, Leishman, and Na and Patrick Reed are the ones generating a lot of ownership in that range. So expect them to be chalks, so just use that information to your advantage. Kyle Stanley is projected over 10%. Phil is projected over 10%, as is Molinari and Gary Woodland. But chalk is going to fester somewhere down here. Berger seems like a lock to be highly owned, so does Woodland, but if a lot of people play these Stars and Scrubs rosters, someone else from down in this range is going to get a lot as well. I think it's going to be Xander Schauffele and or Kevin Kisner. I can see both those guys somewhere around 10 to 15% as well. So if you're not feeling them this week, full fade would be the move I would make there and pivot onto someone else who's going to have lower ownership for the giant ones. I'm not saying you need to go contrarian in every spot. I'm never one to say that. You need one or two guys, and by leaving $200, $300, $400 on the table, then that helps you out and you don't have to go as contrarian anyway. Just doing that makes your lineup contrarian instead of taking a guy you don't have a whole lot of faith in. But if you just want to use two guys that are sub 5% or one guy who's sub 5% and maybe a single entry or the 3 max entry, I think that will go a long way to help separating your lineup from the pack. Sorry again about no video this week. I really do apologize, but that's the way it's going to have to be for right now. Again, Wednesday, I'll be back with the Week 2 DraftKings Pick Show, audio version, video version. Hopefully, I can re-record the ranking show with Jake if he's still around and available to do that as well. But if not, you can check out all of my Week 2 rankings up on DraftKings Playbook. They're live right now, so you might want to go give them a gander. Again, my apologies, but if you want to subscribe to the audio version of the Pat Mayo Experience, you can do that on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and Audio Boom, on demand, uncut, as always, updated basically every single day. Thursday, Feinberg, me, and Andercust will have the spread picks and previews and survivor selections. That'll be a video. We'll have ownership, MMA breakdowns, and of course, I'm going to be popping up on DKTV live on their Facebook live stream all throughout the week, so you want to go check that out as well. I'm Pat Mayo. Good luck with the BMW Championship. I'll see you next time.